the dinger. Oh, you're going to do that. Okay. All right.
We start on time.
Good morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Wayne County. We are a diverse congregation that welcomes you as you are, regardless of your age, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, gender identity, economic status, or physical ability. We come together to seek deeper meaning and understanding from each other and the world around us. Your presence here today is a gift that brings us closer to that understanding. We are an active community that lives its values beyond the hours of Sunday service, and I would like to call your attention to the following. Are you new to the congregation? Do you want to learn more about Unitarian Universalism? Do you want to get more involved with the UFWC? If so, please join us shortly after the service today for 45 minutes of packed information in a UU inquiry session. We will meet down the hallway in the minister's office or classroom number 3. Bring your questions. Next Sunday after the service, we celebrate 50 years of our existence. Woo! We will have several activities, including a potluck and a tent outside. Please sign up so we can know how many to set up for. And
we are going to have trivia.
We're going to have trivia.
Trivia contest and costumes.
And costumes, your best 70s wear.
And cool music.
Cool music. Potluck, okay. Come dressed for the 70s. There is more information in the lobby, and you can follow those two around and ask them more questions. You, rock on. Excuse me. If you would like to find out more about our activities, be sure to read the back of the bulletin, and feel free to ask Karen Skubik, there she is over in the corner, our membership coordinator after the service. Are you doing the introduction of the Zoom? Karen is. Okay.
All right, good morning, all. So do we have any first-time, second-time, third-time visitors, anyone who's never had an opportunity to introduce themselves? You're welcome to do so now. You don't have to. But we'd love to get to know you better, and that way people can better greet you after the service. Anyone? Well, if not, I'd still like to take just a moment to say hi to some folks we haven't seen in a while. Inel Keller, so great to see you and have you here. Very nice. And Shay, we haven't seen Shay in a while. He's back for the summer. And I hear it's his birthday, too. This is a small community. We find things out quickly here. Happy birthday, Shay. So good to have you all here. Thank you.
I would ask that all of you remember to silence your cell phones and open your minds for the service ahead. And I'll take this off. Our chalice lighting this morning is by Rosemary Bray McNatt. The truth is this: if there is no justice, there will be no peace. If we cannot bring justice into the small circles of our individual lives, we cannot hope to bring justice to the world. And if we do not bring justice to the world, none of us is safe, and none of us will survive. Nothing that we do is more important than making justice real, here where we are. Hard as diversity is, it is our most important task. Now let us rise in body or spirit as we sing our opening hymn, This Little Light of Mine. The music can be found in the gray hymnal, number 118, or up on the screens.
This is the fun part about a mask and a lavalier mic. Thank you for joining us here this morning for this Pride service. I'd ask you now to join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. This is a prayer that is called Children of Your Light and was written by Marta Valentine. Mother, Father, God, we have emerged as a world of rainbows in your magnificent image, and we sing our praises in your honor. Mother, Father, God, there are many in our communities who are lost, hurt, and dying. There are many who dare not speak, many who speak and are not heard, many who wish to speak and have no words. Help us all, queer and non-queer, to gather this day to worship together, sit at the table as one, and break not only bread, but misconceptions. In this world which daily challenges our existence, our interior rock that allows us to hold our ground, enlarges with every resolution to speak on your behalf, to honor the divinity within ourselves, and give witness as children to your light. May this be so.
We as Unitarian Universalists are a people who show up, whether it be at a protest on the street or a visit to a friend in need. We are there for those who need us. This includes showing up for our own community. The donations collected ensure that our community is able to consistently show up for those around us. All donations collected today that are not marked for other purposes will be split with the Akron-Canton Regional Food Bank, who provides food and other essential items to member hunger relief programs in 8 Northeast Ohio counties: Carroll, Holmes, Medina, Portage, Stark, Summit, Tuscarawas, and Wayne. These member programs operate 500 food pantries, hot meal sites, shelters, and other hunger relief programs in the neighborhoods and communities where people need food. We thank you for showing up however you can for this community. The offering will now be collected and gratefully received. Join me in this unison reading. The words are on the screen. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share our gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others. This morning, our reading is, I Cannot Prove to You That I Am, We Are Human, by Teresa I. Soto. I cannot prove to you that I am a person, but you can hold my hand, cool and dry, while we pray, or just breathe, ragged breaths catching on our aching ribs. I cannot prove to you that brown skin is holy, that black skin is sacred, but you can know it, luminous and irrepressible, the tabernacle of your own liberation. I cannot even prove to you that every queer body, every trans and NB body, every ace and bisexual body sings back to the universe its immense generative power of yes. I cannot prove to you that with quadratic certainty that what a disabled body holds is a story of wisdom beyond perfection, like a red sun emerging from behind a cloud of dust. So the answers that I have for a country hacking up a death rattle and a democracy with a wheezing, waxy pallor are about our courage to love, our desperation not only for survival but also to tread above the worst of our collective nature, and to get each other free, unashamed that there will come a day when we were willing to risk looking foolish to simply stay together and alive.
So you may have noticed there's a rainbow flag on the chancel. June is Pride Month. I'm sure we've all seen every single corporate entity change their logos to rainbows this month. What I love about this is how when we say pride, we automatically think LGBTQ+, right? We don't think of pride for any other marginalized group. And while the work that has been done for so many LGBTQ+ persons has been focused on equality and justice work, all of this stems from the idea of LGBTQ+ persons not wanting to feel shame for who they are. Pride to just be, something that so many of us straights take for granted. This idea of just to be proud of who you are. So I want to talk about the history of pride just a little bit today, because you can't have a good UU sermon without history. And how pride ties in with that other June holiday, which is Juneteenth. No, that's a good one though. What's Father's Day? I have a whole sermon that's just on Father's Day, my issues with it. We're going to avoid that. But we're going to talk a little bit about how pride started and how it ties with Father's Day. First Pride celebration was on June 28th, 1970. And it was not called Pride, it was called Christopher Street Liberation Day. What's on Christopher Street? Stonewall. What happened at Stonewall? An injustice. Oh my God. Actually, what happened at Stonewall was a resistance to an injustice, because injustice had been happening in that neighborhood and in other gay bars for years. And finally, people at Stonewall said, will you stop persecuting us for just being us? Resistance happened at Stonewall, those riots, 6 days. And so 1 year afterwards, they had a parade and celebrated their resistance. And then the years after that, we started to see pride marches on that day on a global scale, right? Not just in, what city was Stonewall? New York City. We started to see marches in Chicago, Berlin, right? Boston, Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. And this is where I'm going to focus a little bit on D.C. because I did some research while I was in the Arlington congregation on Pride, and it focuses a little bit on the D.C. area. But what I do want to say is Pride has not been a month for a while, right? We didn't get Pride Month 1971. First Pride Month was when? 1999. Yeah, official Pride Month, let's say. First official Pride Month. It was endorsed by the then President, Bill Clinton, and every Democratic president afterwards codified that, acknowledged that, named June as Pride Month. And while I was in Arlington, I had a congregant who was a member of the gay community talk to me a little bit about how Pride was just initially one day and how in DC, Pride purposely fell on Father's Day for years until 1991, when they asked to move it to a different day. And why was it on Father's Day? Why was it on Father's Day? Because it was a way to thumb their nose at the holiday. I tried to find statistics during this sermon when I originally did it a few years ago about LGBTQ persons and them being estranged from their families in the 70s and 80s. I was looking for statistics in those decades, and my Google foo is not that good. I could not find any of those statistics because every time I looked for statistics on LGBTQ estrangement, I kept getting modern numbers, right? I looked, tried decades, only got modern numbers. So while I can't point to specific data, I can talk a little bit about anecdotal evidence. I'm not going to ask any of my friends here who are LGBTQ about their relationships with their parents, because that's not my business as a congregation. That's something you want to talk with me personally, we'll talk about. But I know that there are those who are estranged from their families, and especially their fathers, right? I have a few older LGBTQ friends who've told me that they actually had good relationships with their parents, and they felt that they were the exception to the rule in these communities. But relationships with parents can be complicated, especially with fathers. I'm going to talk now in the most un-UU way possible, in the broadest of stereotypical terms, about the relationships that we often perceive with parents. When we talk about relationship with parents, often when we think of mothers, what do we think of? Unconditional love. Mom loves you no matter what. And often when we think of relationships with fathers, we think of, I am looking for your approval at every turn, right? Love with conditions. Now, I am sure there are those of you who have mothers who you felt very conditional with your love, or felt very conditional with their love with you. And I'm sure some of you have fathers who just loved you unconditionally. And for many of us, those broad strokes ring true, that we have this feeling of conditional love with our fathers. And oftentimes, when LGBTQ persons were told to leave their houses by their parents, it was the fathers who were doing that work. And so pride came in to take that day over, to remind these people that if they can't have their birth family, that they could have their chosen family. That members of the LGBTQ plus community would be that family. That's one thing I remember hearing when I had my few queer friends in college let me into some of their circles. They would say, you know, we call each other family, that we are family together. Because they have common stories of oppression and exile, things that bring them together. They provided each other with what was missing from their families of origin. They had a group that loved them no matter what. You might not always get along with them. How we all have chosen family we don't always get along with. Let's not even talk about our birth family. But you have each other's back. That is the thing about a good family. You have each other's back. You serve each other. So for a long time, at least in the Arlington, D.C. area, right, Father's Day in the LGBTQ community was for chosen family. A day to celebrate and lift each other up and to put aside those who had shamed you and estranged you, to embrace where love was found. But why did that change in 1991? What happened in 1991 where members of the LGBTQ plus community asked to move pride away from Father's Day? Well, I have a few ideas. One is that we started to see openly gay parents, because we started to see people who were in hetero relationships who had children feel that they could come out of the closet and be their true selves. So we had LGBTQ parents now, and they wanted to actually celebrate those days. We had a few, very few, instances of gay men adopting children. We had a few gay men who were in couples but didn't tell the adoption agent that they were in a couple so they could adopt a child as one person and then have a family. There was a few of those instances. But I think something else happened. There is a magazine in Washington, D.C. called The Blade. Anyone know what The Blade is? It's a queer newspaper. Started in like '68. They have it all archived, all of the old issues. And when I was originally researching the sermon, I read a lot of issues from 1970 to 1991, which was a trip, I will tell you that. Most of those issues in the early 70s were about gay-friendly businesses. There was some doctor stuff. There was some political stuff. These are the candidates you want to vote for. These are the candidates you don't want to vote for. And that was about it. And then in the early 80s, it changed tone. What happened in the early 80s? What I hear over here? AIDS. AIDS and HIV. AIDS. Suddenly the tone of the paper changed. And instead of being a celebration, it became a cautionary tale. It became a warning. It became how to deal with and all of the scares and all of the medical advice. And in '89, they added an obituary section solely for people in the gay community who had died from AIDS and HIV-related instances. Huge, huge blow to that community. And I have to imagine that a lot of reconciliation happens on deathbeds. I have to imagine that there were parents who saw their estranged child die or come close to death, because dying from AIDS was not a quick process. It was not a pretty process. How many of you know the tale of the Prodigal Son? Right? I know, Christian scripture on gay pride, let's be careful. This reminds me of that story, though. Prodigal son, for those of you who aren't familiar, so if you hands stay down, right, is there's this young son, younger brother of two boys. He decides he wants his family inheritance, and he asks his father, cash me out of the will, I want to go make my way in the world. Prodigal son goes, spends all of his cash, and loses it quickly, and then ends up hiring himself out as a farmhand, and he's treated absolutely horribly. And he says to himself, you know what, if I go back to my dad and ask just to be employed by him, not to be his son anymore, but just to be employed by him, because he at least treated his workers nicely, maybe that would be a better life. So he goes to dad, and what does dad do? Oh my gosh, my son's back. We're having a party, and I'm going to give him the best clothes. I'm going to have a great big old feast, and I'm going to welcome him back with open arms and say, thank you for coming back, and I love you, and I love you. And of course, the older son is like, Dad, why are you falling for this stuff again? And dad says, because he was lost, and now he's found. I found him again. My thought is, this whole idea of reconciliation on a deathbed, it's the parents who threw their children out who are the prodigal son in this. They are the ones who squandered that relationship. They are the ones who threw that away so carelessly. And they are the ones who had to come back, hat in hand, asking for forgiveness to be let in again. And I am sure that there are parents who went and did that who were not reconciled at the end. I'm sure there were some who were. And I know that there were plenty of parents who probably never went and bothered to make that reconciliation. But I had to think there were enough who were to maybe want to re-celebrate what that family was. That people realized how important that family connection was. Because that's what family is. Unconditional love. You get it no matter what. It means forgiving someone who genuinely works to make amends. It means loving someone for who they are and accepting them in toto, faults and all. And family's not blood. Family's not lineage. I'm sure we have a lot of us here who have blood relatives who are not family. And I know we have plenty of us here who have close friends who are family. And many of us forget that as we look at ourselves in this world, that we are a family, a global family. I mentioned earlier that I was looking for statistics about estranged parents in the 70s and 80s, and I couldn't find any because why? I'm getting modern statistics. It's still happening today that LGBTQ plus teens are being forced from their homes by parents who don't understand, who don't get it. And I really want to say this is happening less often than it used to. And 5 years ago, I think I could have said that. I'm not sure anymore. Over the last few years, we have seen a resurgence of homophobic sentiment that has found its way into every aspect of our lives, but especially in our legislation. Many of us know about that wonderful Florida bill, the Don't Say Gay bill, right? We all heard about that. Can't talk about being gay in a classroom. Y'all know that House Bill 616 in Ohio was a copycat of that and is up for approval, right? Right? Can you imagine being a child with same-sex parents and not being able to talk about your parents in school as a kindergartner? Try to explain that to a kindergartner, why that makes sense. How many of you know about the amendments to House Bill 151? Okay, how many of you know what that means, right? We don't know the details by those details. How many of you know about the genital inspection bill? How about that one? That's the amendments to House Bill 151, where they are saying that they can inspect the genitals of a suspected transgender minor in an athletic competition. Suspected. What about that? Okay, we all know about the leak from the Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade, House being overturned on privacy basis, right? Guess what other legal decision was based on privacy in 2015? Marriage equality. There are a lot of LGBTQ plus legal professionals who are very scared about what this means for marriage equality in our country. It feels like this country is once again stripping pride from our LGBTQ plus citizens. And I am tired of it. And I say enough. It's time to remind this world, to remind everyone that we are that global family again. When I first candidated in this congregation 5 years ago, COVID time, it was a year ago, I said one of my goals for this congregation was that I want you to share that deep love you have for each other, because you guys love each other fiercely, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. But I want you to share that deep and fierce love you have with each other with the rest of the community, with Worcester and Wayne County. And with all that is happening in the LGBT community right now, I think we need to make a show of unconditional love and support for them. In 2001, This was certified as a welcoming congregation, and we need to make that welcome loud and clear. I propose that we put up a pride flag. I personally like the newer one than this one, but I propose we put up a pride flag. And I don't think we should put it up in our window here or in the other window at the other end of the building. I think it should go by our sign on Burbank Road. I want people to drive by and see it, right? Because first of all, I love our sign, but when you immediately drive past it, you have to make the emotional and intellectual investment to read it. You can see a flag much quicker than you can read it. Second of all, how many of you, when you say to someone, I'm a Unitarian Universalist, you get the whole, what's that question? Right? And when you say you belong to a fellowship, how many go, what's that question? So when they drive by and they see our sign and say Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, that means nothing to a lot of people. But the pride flag, they're going to know who we are like that. They are going to know who we are like that. And here's what I hope happens with that flag, if we get that up there. I hope that people drive by, and maybe they slow down next time to read the sign when they pass, because you can't slow down on Burbank too much. Someone will back into you. But they slow down next time to read the sign, and then they look us up online. They look at our Facebook page. They look up Unitarian Universalism. Maybe they come in the doors in 2 weeks. And maybe we show them what it is to welcome someone for who they are. Maybe we show them that it's okay to have pride in who they are. Maybe we start sharing that love we have with other people in our community. Now, our bylaws state that any signage off of Burbank Road needs to be put to a congregational vote. Now, we cannot have a vote right now. We have to let everybody have time to talk about this. And that's what I want to have happen. I want you to let me know how you feel. If you are in support of this, you can send me an email saying, yes, go for it. If you really want to have a conversation about it, I would love it. I love conversations because I will let you in a little secret. Conversation for me means a cup of coffee. And any chance for a cup of coffee is good for me. So if you want to make an appointment to meet me in my office or at some other coffee shop and we can talk about your thoughts on this, I would love to drink coffee with you. Because I will drink coffee with anyone, but especially y'all. And I want you to talk to yourselves about this. I want you to discuss this with yourselves more than anyone else. Because I'm not the final decider on this. Even the board isn't the final decider. We all are. We have to do this as a community. You also have to understand, putting up a flag, this is my biggest thing, putting up a flag is not the end goal. Putting up a flag is like the starting pistol at a race. It means we are all in to get moving. Putting up a flag means we are ready to do the work. Are y'all ready to do the work? Okay, so maybe we don't put up the flag. Are y'all ready to do the work? Okay, all right, good. All right, the people who are clapping, you're the ones I want to make sure you talk to everybody. Right? You got the energy. But here's the thing. We have so many people who feel abandoned. Abandoned by their elected leaders, abandoned by their family of origin, abandoned by the school systems who say you can't say X, Y, or Z. They need their family. They need a place where they are loved unconditionally. I'd like to welcome them into ours. Because that's the thing. Family serves. Family works for the good of all of its members. And I hope you join me in this. May it be so. So let us sing. I now ask for those of you who are feeling joyful to rise in body or spirit and sing our closing hymn, One More Step.
One more step, we will take
till there is peace for us and everyone. One more step, one more word. We will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. One more word, one more prayer. We will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer, one more song. We will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
I don't know why, but I want to sing We Are Family. Maybe it's this whole 70s vibe that you've got going on. But I keep going back to this idea of chosen family. And that is so important. I want you to treat the rest of this world like your chosen family. I want you to give unconditional love and support, especially to those who have been pushed on the edge. Love fiercely, my friends. The world needs it. May it be so.
You all that, don't know which mic is on, doesn't matter. Just want to remind you all after service, there is a meeting about Madrigal. For those of you who are interested in getting Madrigal, it's going to be in the large group room. And how many of you are coming next week to the party? Yeah. All right, good. I want to see y'all bring your boogie shoes.